I'm Sarah Smith, and I'm here to present the last speaker. It's Bo Sachs, president of Precision Media.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be back in Mississippi. And now for something completely different. I would like to start out by pointing to my slide that I open up every show with. It's traditionally a photo of Socrates drinking hemlock. But you'll notice in my revisionist theories of publishing and history, he and his pals are drinking a Heineken. My point is that not all publishing tales are accurate. But before I begin, I want to say a few extra words. Consider it a preface to my talk. There is no friendship more powerful than one based on earned respect. As some of the professionals in the room know, Professor Husney and I spent a decade publicly debating the future of our industry. Did you know that Professor Husney actually created the concept of a PhD in journalism? Because, of course, it didn't exist before Samir. This year, Professor Husney won the coveted Franklin Luminaire Award, and it is indeed coveted, which recognizes exceptional professionals for their positive contribution and service within media and visual communications. On winning the award, Samir gets to join the ranks of giants of the past. He will be welcomed as the Prince of Print and a titan among his peers. Samir has a lifetime of extraordinary and meritorious service to this university and to the industry at large. Indeed, he has always been Mr. Magazine. So I would like to take a round of applause to Samir, who put this show together. I want that bourbon later. Okay, now let's talk about my other favorite subject, me. What I hope to present to you is my take on the condition and possibilities of the industry. My conclusions and my perspective arrives after a lifetime in the business. I worked for all these major companies. I did found High Times magazine with others. I'm a founding father. I've also been a publisher, an editor, a writer, a journalist, a director of communications. This gives me a broad palette to understand and view the industry. And I also published the world's oldest e-newsletter. Last year, here at ACT, I talked a lot about the synergy between print and digital. Marketers have learned the hard way that it's not easy. It's not easy to talk. That easy is not a good measuring tool for effective marketing. So what did we hear so far in the last few days? On the opening night, Stephen Orr talked about the need for quality. He said, we don't trick our readers. We don't use the whizzification of content, which is an algorithm of telling you what to do. He said, brands mean less when we're all the same. Linda discussed how magazine media matters and that she's out to save the world one magazine at a time. And she noted that magazines are trusted brands. I'm going to talk about that later. Linda also pointed out that magazines are invited guests. She discussed an anecdote of Stella Beer as an example of digital intrusion. I'm going to get back to that in a few slides. My friend Daniel, he said that reading ink on paper stimulates visual, haptic, olfactory, and auditory parts of the brain. People understand and remember what they read on paper better than what they read on a screen. Jeff Joseph added that vinyl isn't coming back and print isn't going to be what it was. And just for fun, I thought I would throw up a vinyl chart. And you can see it is blipping up, but that's not exactly a comeback. Jeremy Leslie offered that good magazines are like people. They have character. Laurie spoke of the most important facts. Without a free press, democracy dies. We had a fantastic panel proving how entrepreneurship is alive and well. Repeated by James, and among the many fascinating things that James offered is this gem. If you rely on a single revenue stream, it's very risky. This too will be in my talk. James also noted that advertising is less important to our industry than it was at any time before. Hopefully, I will address that too. And from John, we heard a critical point. Always ask questions. Why? So, what does it all mean? Let's start here. For millennia, technology had little big picture impact. Look at the straight line in the chart. That includes every major invention since the year one, including the printing press. Then James Watt triggered the Industrial Revolution, and the next thing you know, we all have iPhones. The big picture is this. It all came to us too fast. We are saturated with life-rattling new technologies, yet more is on its way. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, robots, greater use of cyber weapons. They are changing our lives and our businesses in ways both good and not so good. The way we use technology is making us more distracted and divided, and allowing bad players to create chaos and tear apart our open societies. For example, Thomas Friedman said in 2011, he was reporting about a Forrester Research, an estimate that the revenue generated through the sales of smartphones and tablets would reach $38 billion by 2015. It was actually $474 billion by 2017. Think about that. An industry that did not exist in 2006 that will be generating $474 billion in revenues within a decade. That is almost beyond our capacity to understand. But we do understand its effects on our businesses. Look at it this way. Very soon, nothing will be mobile anymore because everything will be mobile. So what do we need to consider? Advertising used to be concerned with imparting information. Today, it is concerned with collecting information. Facebook, Google, Amazon, damn near every digital giant is exploring every part of your life. That is not a generic, anonymous life, but a specific personal intrusion on every individual in the modern-day ecosystem. It's obvious to anyone that we will be living through the most profound transformation of the publishing industry since Gutenberg's invention of movable type in approximately 1439. The problem with living through this revolution is that it's impossible to take the long view of what's happening. Hindsight is the only exact science. Nobody could have known that Gutenberg Press would, among other things, fuel the Reformation and undermine the authority of the mighty Catholic Church, enable the rise of what we now recognize as modern science, create unheard of professions and industries, change the shape of our brains and even our conceptions. And yet printing did all this and more. Now new technologies have started a new revolution. Shoshana Zuboff recently published a book titled The Age of the Smart Machine, The Future of Work and Power. In it, she describes how we are again living through a revolution that is changing everything. This time, we have combined fantastic digital technology with a new, mutant, powerful form of capitalism. It's called surveillance capitalism. It works by providing free services that billions of people cheerfully use, enabling the providers of those services to monitor the behavior of those in astonishing detail and without their explicit consent. Surveillance capitalism takes our private experiences and turns them into vast revenue streams. Do you remember Linda's reference of the Stella beer? Facebook was listening and snooping. This surveillance capitalism changes everything in our society. Some of it can and will be considered good, but most of it is bad. We will leave the devastating effects of democracy for another day and another conference, and today we will stick to the publishing industry. I believe that it is surveillance capitalism that is the main antagonist in the reduction of the magazine industry's advertising revenue. There is no way I can overstate the peril of our times. Among other things, I am overwhelmed by the lack of integrity. The robber barons of yesteryear have been replaced by e-robber princelings. What we need is clarity of the situation and a path to safety, because as individuals, we are horrifically exposed to predators. When we were young, we were taught to fear the totalitarian governments. We feared they would know everything about us, follow us everywhere, know who we were talking to and what we were saying, and keep secret files on us which could be used to influence our lives in ways that we could only vaguely be visible to us. We are on our way to such a nightmare, except that it isn't the government that knows everything about us, follows us everywhere, knows who we're talking to and what we're saying. What else do we need to consider? A few months ago, digital advertising surpassed print and TV for the first time. It boggles the mind how much known fraud there is in anything digital. Why does the advertising community trust what is obviously a global confidence game? About 3/4 of US fraudulent advertising traffic is sophisticated, invalid traffic. Ad fraud is perhaps the largest organized crime scheme globally in terms of revenue generated, and that includes narcotics. We can argue about the numbers. Perhaps it's less than 50 billion. Perhaps it's even more. It all depends on what the measured part of digital advertising is and what you classify as fraud. Fake humans, click fraud, fake ad placement, paying for ads never seen, fake websites that look real but aren't. They are all grabbing an obviously overabundance of loot. Not to mention the theft of our very selves. Our whole lives and families, interests bundled for sale, and not to the highest bidder, but to any bidder. Bots drove nearly 40% of internet traffic last year, and the naughty ones are getting smarter. The online advertising ecosystem is impossible to understand, much less control, under the current conditions in which we find ourselves. Despite what we hear from lofty P&G, there is no competent leadership anywhere. And I'm compelled to add the Interactive Advertising Bureau is nothing but a joke. Where are the industry leaders? So why is this happening? The answer is right here in this chart. Advertising trade organizations and marketers are making too much money, too much surveillance money to change anything. Facebook, Google, and all the other privacy-abusing online publishers are 100% reliant on advertising for their survival. Essentially, all their revenue comes from advertising. Without ad dollars, they would die in 30 seconds. If the ANA and the 4As were serious about ending the dreadful, dangerous, intrusive practices, they could do it in a heartbeat. All it would take would be one-line memo to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and to the other major publishers. Either find a moral compass and clean this up in 30 days, or we're out. Well, we all know that's never going to happen. There is no cure for greed. I used to think the US government could be the answer to the regulations on this problem. Forget that. Too many senators have demonstrated during the Facebook hearings their clear stupidity about the internet. It's ridiculous, but the lawmakers who have the power to regulate the technology have absolutely no idea how the technology works. There will be no shining knight from Washington to save the day. The duplicity and personal intrusion of hidden surveillance systems all goes unchecked. It's all about rights, not their rights, our rights, your rights. George Orwell, in the book 1984, said, if you want to keep a secret, you must also keep it from yourself. Well, good luck with that. There are no secrets anymore. Pretty depressing, right? Well, it should be. Do you know that Facebook tracks you through third parties, whether you or not you are logged onto Facebook? Facebook's new data policy asserts that they track you even if you don't have a Facebook account. This is not a rant about Facebook. They're just a single shining example of an ongoing digital depravity. Advertising is the big brother we were warned about. Its mission is nothing short of surveillance for a profit. The information on us is stored, sorted, and turned against us as an algorithm. And if it's a good algorithm, we'll march to it. How much has the industry spent on fraudulent ads today? That's a good question. Try $51 million. Research estimated that digital advertisers wasted $51 million on fraud every single day in 2018. So what do we need to consider? But wait, there's a bright side here, and that is print and the magazine industry. Print should be a shining beacon in a sea of criminality. It's not that we can prevent what's going on digitally. We can't. But we can be fertile ground for profitability and safety. We've been hearing that for 2 days. Print is and should be a shining beacon standing tall among the fraudsters. There are successes in many places for the magazine industry, and billions are still being made. There's an abundance of data that shows magazines are more trusted than any other delivery vehicle. Several of our speakers have addressed that. It is rated and respected by readers for top quality and accuracy in reporting. Yet in review, because the profits of surveillance capitalism, print, which is trusted by all parties, gets less ads each year. And I would sidebar that in aggregate. There are many magazines that are growing and growing and growing, and we saw some yesterday. But when you get an aggregate number, it looks like it's headed south. But as we discussed just before, that's not actually true. It's a false rumor. So what do we need to consider? There is a trend in publishing media conferences that has been growing for the past few years. And when I tell you what it is, you will say, of course. I heard it in Berlin last month at the Digital Innovators Summit and at Magnet, at Canada's magazine conference. I've heard it in London and right here last year at Oxford, right in this very room. It was repeated in New York City in 2018 by Linda at the big MPA event. Eventually, I'll tell you what this new revelation is, but not just yet. I want to build up to the simple epiphany. It seems obvious to me that trust and brand recognition will be magazine media's life preserver amid a rising tide of surveillance capitalism. Magazines and newspapers have credibility with the public due to the amount of time, research, personnel, money, and energy invested in them to make them credible. Not all magazines can afford to perform to the top level of excellence, but most do. With all the inconsistency and craziness of the internet, print has, over its 600-year history, created long-time trust in our products. Just being in print affords the aforementioned credibility, even to some titles that don't deserve it. As many surveys tell us, and as Linda demonstrated yesterday, it is true that traditional media is more trusted than online, but let's be honest. The advertising agencies of the world don't seem interested in our credibility and are still deeply attracted to the digital placement of advertising dollars. And that brings me back to the trends I've seen in publishing media conferences, literally everywhere on the planet. It's as simple as this. Let's have the readers pay one way or another for our content. See, I told you you'd say, of course. Yes, that is what we should have been doing all along. Advertising revenue should be the gravy on the meat, adding just a little something extra to the dish, and not the unreliable and indigestible thing that advertising has become. Everywhere I go, the conversation is about two things: giving the readers the information that they want when they want it, and through various means and programs, having them pay for it. Again, totally obvious, but to our industry only in hindsight. The industry has now made that turn and is doing exceedingly well in many cases. This focus on alternative revenue and the creative ways publishers are achieving it is very uplifting to an industry that was struggling for quite some time. Sure, we will still get print advertising revenue, and lots of it, but it is fast becoming just one of many revenue streams and not the sole addictive Goliath it once was. Remember this: structure follows strategy. If you base your strategy on your existing structure, you limit your potential to what you've already done. It was Harvard marketing professor Theodore Levitt who once said, "People don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill, they want a quarter-inch hole." His point was to align those customer needs with brand-consistent solutions. He went on to say, if you're in the media business, you're in the audience business. And there's that theme again. Diversification is opportunity. Just because your brand might be venerable does not mean it should be static. Media companies shouldn't necessarily consider themselves to be solely media companies. What really matters is how your customers perceive you and how you can leverage that relationship. March of this year, Jim Elliott and I were in Berlin at the Digital Innovators Conference. The theme of diversified revenue was repeated many times over that conference. You looking for yourself? I should have put that arrow up for you. And none of the diversification was said better or showed us more examples than Jonathan Dorn, Chief Innovation Officer of Active Interest Media. Chief Innovation Officer. Students, doesn't that sound fantastic? I know in my next life, I want to be a Chief Innovation Officer. Active Interest Media drills down, looking into every nook and cranny to sniff out unexplored revenue opportunities. They do this with all their titles and all their divisions. This case study that Jonathan talked about was strictly the equestrian division. He discussed how they built an entire equine ecosystem from just a few print magazines. And the core of every one of their divisions is a print magazine. But follow what they do with those. He discussed how they built an entire equine ecosystem. An online, on-demand instructional equine university at $160 per course. Dressage Today was an online subscription service with the revenue shared between the traders and AIM. Roping contests, high margin, and including the biggest grossing event in this hotel, including the Super Bowl. A U.S. rider equestrian motor plan, basically an insurance plan, which is a roadside assistance for people with horse trailers. They charge between $129 and $329 per year and have 40,100 subscribers with an 84% renewal rate. That's like $5 million from a horse magazine. Next up, smart speaker home technology with valid, coherent answers for their clients. Alexa, my horse has colic. What do I do? Active Interest Media creates revenue streams like I just described across all their print divisions. The print magazine is the core, and all the others are extras. AIM's content teams have created 100 virtual classes offered across AIM's 6 online universities. This has grown to a 7-figure business in just 3.5 years. These on-demand schools include AIM Health, AIM Adventure, and AIM Fitness Network. There is no magazine publisher in this room that couldn't start a university-type experience for their readers. This kind of creativity is what AIM is all about. This is the kind of creativity necessary for survival in today's magazine media marketplace. My question to every publisher and student is this: are you thinking along these lines? The key to success in any platform is to inspire and engage your customers' passions. The key to revenue in magazine media is to surround your customers with accessible content, experiences, and services. This is a tough self-analysis. Other than AIM, I have not yet met a publisher who couldn't do more with what they already have. I remember someone in the Berlin conference saying, if you don't create alternative revenue streams, you have zombie momentum. Active interest media is not the only one. Look what the New York Times has accomplished. The New York Times has Time Plus, a wine club. And the Wall Street Journal, oddly, has WSJ Plus, both successful membership programs. I think we're in a new golden age of publishing. I think there's more opportunity out there than ever before. We're not going to compete with Google, Facebook, Amazon, but there's billions and billions of dollars left for us to earn. Google, Facebook, Amazon are going to get 75% of ads no matter what we do. So we have to be smart and grab our share of the 25% that's left and the billions that that amounts to. We need to figure out strategies that work to keep our franchises as valuable as they should be and are. At the heart of this improved ROI is a simple idea. You'll get better results if you create a better user experience. For publishers, it's imperative for the reader-subscriber experience across all channels to build a stronger, more sustainable relationship. Many people have talked over the past 2 days about the relationship between the publishing house and the consumer, the reader. The relationship is a strong building block to revenue. Subscriber profiles vary greatly, even within a single publication. And they're all seeking different experiences based on who they are, where they are, and what devices they use throughout the day. With more information than ever before about who the audiences are and how they consume media, publishers should be considering every option to keep their subscribers engaged with personalized bundled offerings. AIM is just one example. There's many examples. Thank you. Technology not only makes it easier for us to understand what the subscribers want, it also makes it easy for us to deliver on those expectations. I saw Kevin Turpin, president of National Journal, speak at the Canada Magazine's Business Summit in February, and he shared this advice on how he made National Journal extremely profitable. He said, as Linda suggests, to build on earned trust and continually innovate. Sounds a lot like the active media approach, active interest media. Kevin correctly noted that we can never be comfortable again. At the end of the day, the best way to build trust with readers is to be good at what you do. If you are reliable, helpful, and competitive, that will help build a solid reputation. Along the lines of we can never be comfortable again, in a recent survey, companies were asked, what best describes your firm's digital transformation? No one understood that transformation is now a permanent state of being. There's no doubt that the media industry is facing enormous challenges when it comes to monetizing brands that were traditionally structured for one or two commercial models. However, the same forces that are causing these long-established models to crumble are enabling new opportunities for brands to evolve. The publishers that grasp this will prosper in a new world of new media. Publishers have always looked to monetize their readers' attention. At its very simplest, the three legs of the magazine model are content, readers, revenue. The publisher's mission has long been to create content that will capture and hold the reader's attention, and to sell that captive audience to advertisers. The problem is that technology companies are designing products with the sole objective of capturing as much attention as possible. Rather than relying on a spread of content that may or may not hold an audience's attention, technology companies are manipulating humanity's mental mechanics to make people stay with them, auto-playing the next episode, rewarding meaningless activity streaks, firing up outrage in comment streams. This is a race to the bottom of the brainstem. To stay in the game, publishers are left to create content according to the priorities set by an algorithm focused on the stimulation of a billion lizard brains. Let's review and go get some bourbon. We are saturated with life-rattling new technologies. We live in a time of surveillance capitalism. Nothing will be mobile anymore because everything will be mobile. Ad fraud is perhaps the largest globally organized crime scheme. Print should be a shining beacon in a sea of criminality. Why? Because magazines are more trusted than any other delivery vehicle. The newest magazine mantra is, let's have readers in one way or another pay for our content and our services. Look into every nook and cranny and sniff out unexplored revenue opportunities. Be very niche and very specific. Whether you are a student beginner in the industry or a sage experienced professional, the strategic positioning of yourselves and your companies as innovators is the most positive thing you can do in this environment. Students, this is a great time to rethink the unthinkable. This is a unique and historic period where the unthinkable has never been more possible. We live in a period of experimentation, innovation, and entrepreneurism that the world has never seen before. Be print strong and digital smart. Thank you.